No justice.
No peace.
No justice.
No peace.
On June 6, 2020, I participated in my first protest march ever. It was to demand justice for George Floyd and an end to police brutality. But to me, it was much more than a march. It was the culmination of a week that changed everything about how I see the world, how I think about the world, and how I act on it. See, I had a privileged upbringing. My dad used to own a local chain of men's clothing stores. It was basically the tailor to the richest, most powerful men in the region where I grew up in Spain. Growing up, I played golf in a private club. I used to be friends with many people in positions of power and authority. They respected me. They even looked up to me as a golfer. I wasn't groomed to be a disruptor. I was raised to advance my own interests within the systems that exist and to use my relationships to do that. When I went to college, I excelled in my undergrad. I got into grad school. I got a fellowship with the National Science Foundation. I got an award for outstanding graduate student. Eventually, I got a job without even having to apply for it. And it was a great job at a local company as a researcher. And throughout all of that, my relationships with faculty, staff, grad students, and other people helped me tremendously. In 2016, I started getting involved with the Dayton community. And by 2020, I was sitting in several boards and committees and task forces and have many other volunteering commitments. One of those was the Dayton Community Police Council, where about 10 community members met monthly with a handful of high-level city officials to discuss community police relations. We hosted opportunities for community police to engage. We gave recommendations to the city on how to improve community police relations. And when there was an incident that impacted community police relations, we met and we discussed it and tried to find ways to address it. Late in 2018, I was asked to become the council chair. And I requested to have a police co-chair because I thought having a police co-chair would make us more impactful. And I met month after month with my co-chair, the police chief, to set up the agenda for the meetings and discuss community police issues. I'm not going to say that all of those meetings led to any change that I can tell, but I can tell you that I saw the relationships that I was nurturing with these people in positions of power as my lifeline to effect an impactful change in our community. And I fought at those tables. I fought at the council. I fought for change. But I fought the way you fight when you believe that change comes from people who hold the authority to make the changes. And I saw my role as just advising them, providing recommendations, maybe trying to persuade them, but ultimately serving at their pleasure and relying on people in positions of power to effect the change. Which brings us to May 30th of 2020. Dayton held its first George Floyd rally, and the rally turned into a spontaneous march where protesters walked downtown until a barricade of police officers stopped them and demanded that they disperse. Eventually, police released tear gas and pepper balls on the protesters. They arrested many of them, including friends of mine. The coordinator of the Community Police Council was there on the front lines trying to negotiate with the police to de-escalate the situation. But he wasn't listened to. He resigned that weekend. I felt completely betrayed by the police command staff that had met month after month reassuring us of how much they value community police relations. I was outraged, but still I thought that the council would meet and discuss and try to address the situation. And I thought that city leadership would put pressure on the police to fulfill this obligation. Instead, what I encountered was the city leadership trying to prevent community members from speaking freely and obstructing the council meeting. And the more we pushed for the council meeting to happen, the more it felt like city leadership was trying to silence us. I went from hopeful to shocked to eventually fearful. This was the first time in my life I had pushed past the point where I was endangering my relations with people in positions of authority, and with them, the safety and privilege that comes with their favor. And yet, when I looked at all the other people in the council, this was just another instance of what always happens to them. To me, it was completely new. It challenged everything I knew about people in positions of authority, and everything I knew what I thought my role was as a community member. I realized that while I had fought for change, I'd always fought to a point. I had never fought like it was my life that was on the line, and I had never allowed that fighting to interfere with my own privilege. On June 6th of 2020, I found myself in Courthouse Square with 300 other people. I wasn't supposed to be there. A flat tire and a series of serendipitous events led me there with my partner and 2 friends. Moses, a young leader, also a member of the Community Police Council, and one of the people who supported me through that week emotionally, and Fred, another young leader who was there on May 30th and who had been a vocal critic of the city response to it. After about 15 minutes on the square, some protesters with signs approached us, asking us if we knew what the program for the protest was. We didn't know. For some reason, nothing was happening. But at that moment, I realized how bad this would be for the movement, how much less likely these people would be to come back if there is another protest. So I talked to Moses and asked him, do you think there's anything we can do? Thinking maybe we could have a couple of people speak. Moses, Fred, myself, a few other people got together. Somebody said that they could speak. Somebody said they could find other people that could speak. Somebody said we should kneel in silence for 9 minutes. And somebody said we should march. Fred took the lead at organizing the program at the square. And Moses and I walked across the street to talk with the police to negotiate a safe route for a march. Others volunteered to speak. After a few speeches at the square and kneeling in silence for 9 minutes, we were ready to march. Moses and I walked over to the street, gave a sign to the police, and started marching, followed by over 300 people. At that point, Moses started to chant, "No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!"
Little after he looked at me quietly, it was my turn. "No justice!
No peace!
No justice!"
No peace!
We walked around downtown for, I honestly don't remember how long, and came back to the square. Moses and I leading the crowd of over 300 people. Then at the square, Fred took over again and challenged protesters to reflect on why they were there. What would they be willing to give up to advance Black lives? And challenged them to post whatever they came up with online for everyone to see. He gave them homework. And then he told them he was going to check out later that night. He held them accountable. And dozens of people posted, including the city manager and the mayor who were there. And everybody was extremely impacted by the march that we helped organize. Now, to me, this was the culmination of a week that completely changed how I see the world, how I think about it, how I act on it. After June 6th, I did not leave the Community Police Council. I continued to sit at the table with the command staff to talk about community police issues. I even volunteered for the new police reform effort that had just started, and I volunteered hundreds of hours for over a year and a half to support that. But I wasn't the same person at those tables. My attitude, my behavior had completely changed. I learned that relationships are a double-edged sword when you're trying to change systems that give people power. And I learned that the tools that can help me advance within a system do not translate very well to change systems to advance justice for all. And I became painfully aware of how much my involvement in the community had contributed to perpetuate the systems that I was trying to change. From then on, I stopped acting like I was serving at the pleasure of the city officials. I started acting like the city officials were working for us to advance our interests, and that our role is to hold them accountable and to ensure that they always keep the community interests above their own or their organizations. And when it comes to change, real, impactful, sustainable, systemic change, I've definitely realized that we are the only ones that are ever going to create it and carry it out. No justice,
No peace.